Daniel hammered the last nail into the workshop shelf and stepped back, admiring his handiwork. 3 months of construction, and his mountain cabin was finally complete. The isolation was exactly what he needed. No neighbors for miles, just pine trees and silence. He wiped the sawdust from his hands and headed toward the basement stairs to grab another box of tools. That's when he heard it, a faint metallic hum beneath the floorboards, almost like machinery running deep underground. He froze, listening. The sound came again, rhythmic and deliberate. His military instincts kicked in as he knelt and examined the floor more carefully. There, hidden beneath a loose board in the corner, he found a hatch covered in strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. His heart pounded as he pried the hatch open, revealing a ladder descending into darkness. The metallic hum grew louder. Against every rational thought screaming at him to call someone, Daniel climbed down into what appeared to be a high-tech bunker. Blue lights flickered to life as he reached the bottom, illuminating sleek walls covered in alien technology. And there, collapsed against the far wall, was a woman unlike anything he'd ever seen. Her skin was a deep, rich purple that seemed to hold an inner luminescence, and her long blonde hair spilled across her shoulders in striking contrast. She wore some kind of tactical armor, torn and scorched, and a nasty burn mark stretched across her shoulder. Her eyes, violet and intense, snapped open as he approached, and her hand immediately went to a weapon at her side. "Stop," she commanded, her voice weak but firm. A small device on her collar translated her words into perfect English. Daniel raised his hand slowly, backing up a step. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said carefully. "You're on my property, under my cabin." She studied him for a long moment, then seemed to decide he wasn't an immediate threat. The weapon lowered slightly. "I crashed here weeks ago," she explained, her breath labored. "My enemies are hunting me across this sector. My ship's AI chose this location as an emergency shelter, isolated, newly constructed, single occupant. You weren't supposed to find me for another month when I'd be healed enough to leave." She tried to stand, but her legs buckled. Daniel caught her instinctively, feeling the unnatural heat radiating from her purple skin. "You're burning up," he said. She nodded weakly. "Infection. The medical supplies here are depleted." Daniel faced an impossible choice. Everything logical told him to contact authorities, to get as far from this situation as possible. But something in her violet eyes, pain mixed with desperate pride, stopped him. He'd been a combat medic in the army. He knew a dying soldier when he saw one, regardless of what planet they came from. "Stay here," he said, surprising himself. "I'll get medical supplies." He climbed the ladder and returned 20 minutes later with his extensive first aid kit, antibiotics, and clean water. The alien woman watched him with those penetrating eyes as he cleaned her wound, applied antibiotic ointment, and wrapped her shoulder with professional efficiency. Her skin felt like warm silk under his fingers, and he tried not to notice how beautiful she was despite her injuries. "My name is Kayla," she said softly as he worked. "I'm a scout for the Zerathi Covenant. I was gathering intelligence when my ship was ambushed." Daniel met her gaze. "Daniel, and this is Earth, if your AI didn't tell you." A faint smile crossed her purple lips. "It did. It also told me you served in your people's military, that you lost someone important 2 years ago, that you built this cabin to escape." Daniel's hands stilled. "Your AI is invasive." "Necessary," she corrected. "I needed to know if you were a threat." She reached out with surprising speed and caught his wrist, her grip weak but deliberate. "Daniel, I want to make you an offer. Protect me for 3 weeks while my body heals. In return, I'll give you technology that will make you wealthy beyond your imagination. And," she hesitated, "I'll offer you a life bond, a genetic exchange that will extend your lifespan by centuries, enhance your physical capabilities, and connect us in ways your species has never experienced." Daniel stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "A life bond? You mean like marriage?" Kayla's laugh was weak but genuine. "More permanent than that. Your DNA would merge with mine at a cellular level. You'd gain strength, accelerated healing, extended life, and we'd be connected, emotionally, physically. You'd feel what I feel. I'd sense your thoughts." She watched his face carefully. "It's not a decision to make lightly.
but I'm offering it because I need someone I can trust completely, and the bond would ensure that trust. Daniel should have run, should have called the authorities, the military, someone. Instead, he found himself asking, "And what do you get out of it, besides protection?" Her violet eyes held his. "Survival. And maybe something I've never had before. A true partner." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he finished bandaging her wound and went upstairs to grab blankets and food. When he returned, Kayla had slipped into an uneasy sleep, her blonde hair spread across the bunker floor like golden silk against the metal. Daniel laid the blankets over her carefully, then sat against the opposite wall, watching this impossible alien woman who just offered to change his entire existence. 3 weeks, she said. He could do 3 weeks. He could make that decision later. For now, he'd committed at least one night of keeping her safe. As he dimmed the bunker lights and listened to her shallow breathing, Daniel wondered if he'd just made the best or worst decision of his life. Outside, the mountain wind howled against his cabin walls, and somewhere in the darkness above, he knew her enemies were searching. 3 days passed in a strange new rhythm. Daniel would wake before dawn, make coffee, then descend into the bunker with breakfast and fresh medical supplies. Kayla's recovery was remarkable, inhumanly fast. The burn that had covered her shoulder was now just faint scarring against her deep purple skin, and her strength returned more each day. He found himself spending hours in the bunker, initially to monitor her condition, but increasingly because he was fascinated by her stories. He told him about her world, Zerathi Prime, where women were the warriors and leaders, where strength was measured not just in combat ability, but in strategic thinking and honor. Her role as a scout meant she traveled alone for months at a time, gathering intelligence on potential allies and threats across the galaxy. "Don't you get lonely?" Daniel asked one evening, as he watched as she demonstrated her healing progress by lifting a heavy equipment case one-handed. Her purple skin seemed to shimmer slightly in the bunker's blue light, an effect he'd learned meant she was actively healing. Kayla set down the case and considered his question. "Loneliness is considered a weakness among my people," she said carefully. "We're taught to be self-sufficient, to need no one." She met his eyes. "But yes, I get lonely." There was something vulnerable in her admission that made Daniel's chest tighten. He found himself sharing things he hadn't spoken about in 2 years. His wife Sarah, the car accident, the suffocating grief that had driven him to build this cabin in the middle of nowhere. Kayla listened without judgment, her violet eyes reflecting understanding that seemed deeper than sympathy. "You loved her deeply," she observed. "I can see it in how you speak of her, and how you won't say her name with pain crossing your face." Daniel looked away. "Some pain doesn't heal." "No," Kayla agreed softly, "but sometimes we find new reasons to live despite it." The conversations grew longer, more personal. Daniel learned that Kayla had never formed close bonds with her own people, that her skills as a scout had isolated her even among warriors. She'd chosen solitary missions because connecting with others felt more dangerous than facing enemy fire. "My people value strength above all," she explained one night. "Emotional attachment is seen as a liability. I was raised to be independent, untethered." She smiled sadly. "I excelled at it, but excellence doesn't keep you warm at night." Daniel understood that loneliness more than she knew. They were both people who'd chosen isolation as protection, who'd built walls so high they'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. Yet here they were, in a hidden bunker beneath a mountain cabin, slowly dismantling those defenses one conversation at a time. One evening, Daniel noticed Kayla shivering despite the bunker's controlled temperature. He moved closer, concerned. "Are you cold? Should I adjust the heat?" She shook her head, wrapping her arms around her. Her blonde hair fell forward, hiding her face. "It's not temperature," she admitted quietly. "It's isolation sickness. My people experience it when we're separated from our units for too long. Physical symptoms, shaking, weakness. It passes, but it's uncomfortable." Without thinking, Daniel sat beside her and pulled her against his side. She stiffened initially, then slowly relaxed into his warmth. They sat like that for over an hour, Daniel talking about everything and nothing. His plans for the cabin, books he'd read, memories of his childhood in Colorado. Kayla listened without judgment, her violet eyes reflecting understanding that seemed deeper than sympathy. "You loved her deeply," she observed. "I can see it in how you speak of her, and how you won't say her name with pain crossing your face." Daniel looked away. "Some pain doesn't heal." "No," Kayla agreed softly. "But sometimes we find new reasons to live despite it." The conversations grew longer, more personal. Daniel learned that Kayla had never formed close bonds with her own people, that her skills as a scout had isolated her even among warriors. She'd chosen solitary missions because connecting with others felt more dangerous than facing enemy fire. "My people value strength above all," she explained one night. "Emotional attachment is seen as a liability. I was raised to be independent, untethered." She smiled sadly. "I excelled at it, but excellence doesn't keep..."
Daniel woke to an empty bed and immediate awareness of where Kayla was, not through sight or sound, but through the bond itself. She was in the bunker's control room, 15 feet away, and he could feel her anxiety like a low hum in his chest. He dressed quickly and found her hunched over a communications console, blonde hair disheveled, her purple skin pale with stress. She didn't look up as he approached, but he felt her acknowledgement through their connection. "What's wrong?" he asked, though the bond already told him. She pulled up a holographic display showing a message in her alien script. "My people," she said quietly. "They've been trying to reach me for weeks. My ship's AI finally relayed the communications." She touched the display and it translated to English. "They want me to complete my mission and report back. They've designated Earth as a low-priority contact world, essentially not worth their time. I'm ordered to return within the next lunar cycle." Daniel felt the conflict roiling through her like a storm. Duty warred with desire, loyalty to her people against this new bond they'd formed. "What happens if you don't return?" Kayela's hands clenched on the console. "They'll send another scout to investigate, and if they discover I've remained here voluntarily, bonded to a human..." She met his eyes finally, and he saw fear there. "It would be seen as desertion, betrayal of my oath. My family would be dishonored." Through the bond, Daniel felt the weight of that dishonor. In her culture, family shame was a burden carried for generations. "But if you return..." "I leave you," she said bluntly. "The bond doesn't weaken with distance, which means I'd feel you for the rest of my life while being parsecs away, unable to touch you, to see you. It would be a special kind of torture." The reality of their situation crashed over them both. They'd bonded in a moment of intensity, of connection neither had expected, but the universe wasn't going to make it easy. Kayela turned back to the console and brought up another display, this one showing the technology she'd promised him. Advanced medical scanners that could diagnose any disease, energy sources that could power his cabin for decades, fabrication tools that could create nearly anything he needed. "This could make you wealthy beyond imagination," she said quietly. "You could sell just one of these devices and never work again, or use them yourself and revolutionize human medicine. I promised you this, and I'll keep that promise." But Kayela could feel what she wasn't saying, the guilt bleeding through the bond. She'd offered him technology and extended life, but now she might have to leave him with it. "You have to go back, don't you?" he said, though the thought of it made his chest physically ache. "For your family, your honor." Kayela's shoulders slumped. "I don't know. Part of me says duty comes first. I took an oath when I became a scout. My people gave me everything. Training, purpose, identity." She turned to face him fully, purple skin shimmering with stress bioluminescence. "But another part of me, the part that bonded with you, says that oath was made by someone who didn't understand what she was missing. How can I return to isolation now that I know what connection feels like?" Daniel crossed to her and pulled her into his arms. Through the bond, he pushed waves of certainty at her. "Then we find a third option, together." She looked up at him, hope and skepticism warring in her violet eyes. "What third option?" "Show me your ship. If we can repair it, you'd have the choice to leave if you need to, but you'd also have the choice to stay, to make contact with your people on your terms." It took them 3 hours to reach the cave system where Kaela's ship had crashed. The vessel was smaller than Daniel expected, sleek and elegant, designed for a single pilot on long-range missions. The damage was extensive, but not irreparable. Kaela ran diagnostics while Daniel assessed the structural integrity with his engineering background. With the right parts and about 2 weeks of work, she calculated, I could get her flying again. The fabrication tools in the bunker could create most of what we need. They worked together over the following days, falling into an easy rhythm. Kaela's technical knowledge, combined with Daniel's practical skills, proved surprisingly effective. But as the ship slowly came back to life, the question of what would happen when it was fully operational hung between them. During breaks in the repair work, they retreated to the cabin. Kaela had moved upstairs permanently now, and Daniel's bed had become their shared space. The intimacy between them deepened with familiarity, stolen moments of passion against the ship's hull, her purple skin glowing with exertion and desire. Quiet mornings in bed where they learned each other's bodies and hearts in equal measure. One night, as they lay tangled together, Kaela spoke about her world. They would never accept you, she said, tracing patterns on his chest. Humans are seen as primitive by most of the galaxy, too violent, too short-lived, too chaotic. If I brought you to Sharthi Prime, you'd be treated as a curiosity at best, a pet at worst. The words stung, but he heard the pain in her voice. And you're staying here? How would your people see that? As desertion, Kaela said bluntly. Betrayal. I'd be stripped of my rank, my honor. My family would disown me to preserve their own standing. She turned to face him, purple-skinned, fierce in the darkness. But I don't care anymore, Daniel. Let them call it desertion. Let them strip away titles and honor. What good is honor when it means living without the other half of your soul? Her intensity took his breath away. You'd give up everything? Your whole life? Your people? Everything you know? I already have, she said simply. The moment I chose to bond with you. There's no going back from this, Daniel. The bond isn't just physical or emotional. It's written into every cell of my body now. Returning to my people would mean living a half-life, always feeling you across the distance, always knowing what I gave up. Their lovemaking that night was different, desperate and claiming, as if they could somehow bind each other even more permanently than they already were. Daniel felt her resolution crystallizing through the bond. She was choosing him over everything she'd ever known. The certainty of it was both humbling and terrifying. He pushed his own certainty back at her, his commitment matching hers stride for stride. When morning came, everything changed. Kaela bolted upright in bed, her entire body going tense. They're back, she said, already reaching for her weapon. My enemies. They detected the ship's power signatures when we activated its core systems yesterday. Daniel felt her combat focus snap into place through the bond, sharp as a blade. How many? 3 warriors this time, a full strike team. She was already moving, pulling on armor she'd retrieved from the ship. The ship's not ready, Daniel said, his own military training kicking in. We can't outrun them. No, Kaela agreed, her voice cold and lethal. We fight. She turned to him, and he saw the warrior fully emerged now, deadly, focused, magnificent. Daniel, you don't have to do this. You could run. Get to town. Get help. This is my fight. Through the bond, he felt what she wasn't saying, her fear not for herself, but for him, the desperate hope that he'd save himself even if she couldn't. Daniel met her violet eyes and let his resolve flood through the connection. We're bonded. Your fights are my fights now. I'm not running. He grabbed his own weapons, hunting rifle, tactical gear from his army days. The enhancements have improved my reflexes, my healing. I'm not the same person I was a week ago. Kaela crossed to him and kissed him fiercely. If we survive this, when we survive this, he interrupted. When we survive this, she corrected, a slight smile breaking through her warrior mask. When we survive this, we find a way to make them all understand. My people, yours, everyone. We make them see that bonds like ours are worth more than honor or duty or any artificial boundary between species.
She pressed her forehead to his. The way he'd learned was a sign of ultimate trust among her people. "I'm not leaving you, Daniel. I've made my choice." "Then we prepare for war," Daniel replied, feeling his own combat instincts rising to meet hers. They fortified the cabin quickly and efficiently, 2 soldiers working in perfect synchronicity. Kayela set up energy barriers from the ship's technology, while Daniel created firing positions and fallback points. Through the bond, they didn't need to communicate verbally. Each knew where the other was, what they were thinking, how they'd react in combat. As the sun rose over the mountain, painting the pine trees gold and crimson, Kayela stood beside him on the cabin's porch. Her purple skin seemed to glow in the morning light, blonde hair braided back for battle, weapons ready. She looked every inch the warrior she'd been trained to be. But Daniel could feel the woman underneath, afraid but determined, violent but loving, alien but somehow more human in her emotions than many people he'd known. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "thank you for seeing me. All of me." Daniel took her hand, their joined palms still carrying faint scars from their bonding. "Whatever happens, we face it together. That's what the bond means." Above them, 3 contrails appeared in the sky, growing closer. Kayela's enemies had arrived, and the battle for their future was about to begin. Through the bond, Daniel felt her love and fear and determination all at once, and he sent his own back to her, an unshakable promise that he would fight for this, for her, for the impossible future they dared to imagine together. The 3 alien warriors materialized in Daniel's yard just as the sun crested the mountain peaks. They were massive, each nearly 7 feet tall, covered in sophisticated